Today we're making a seriously good homemade chicken sandwich that will hit way harder than you expect. I made the whole thing from scratch. The bun, the breaded fried chicken, the spicy sauce, everything. But trust me, you don't have to go that deep to enjoy this. I also have a surprise ingredient that levels up an already impressive sandwich. Without wasting too much time, let's jump right in. First up, we have the bun. You really don't have to make these, and I wasn't planning on making them either, but I couldn't find the right size bun with sesame seeds. So I settled on doing it myself, and I don't regret it one bit. These are soft and fluffy and toast up really nice. A great way to easily improve the texture of yeast products is to make a flour paste. Start with a third cup of all-purpose flour. Add roughly half cup water and mix well to really dissolve that flour. This mixture is also called a Tangzhong. Pre-cooking a bit of our flour this way traps moisture, keeping our buns softer for longer and gives us a nice pillowy bite. It's an easy way to get bakery quality without the bakery stress. Slowly cook this on low while stirring constantly to keep it smooth. The flour will quickly gel, trapping all of that water. Once it comes together like this, it is ready. Quick and easy. To get the dough together, we need 2 cups of all-purpose flour. To that, I'm adding our cooled flour paste. Then the optional tablespoon of sugar for a slightly sweet bun. Half a tablespoon of instant yeast. About 2 tablespoons of butter. Half a teaspoon salt. I'm going to mix all of that together before adding the water. That's a little less than a cup. This gives us a shaggy dough. I should have used a spoon at this step because this is really messy. Once we've got our shaggy dough, I'm going to let it rest for about 10 minutes. That helps develop some gluten and lets the dough relax. After it's rested, we can work the dough. It's a bit sticky and pasty, so I'm adding a little flour, just enough so I can handle it. Be careful not to add too much or you will end up with a tough bun. You can see how stretchy that dough is now. Adding flour is really a feel thing. The dough should still be very soft. I feel like adding more flour here will make it tough, so I'm using a bit of oil on my hands to help with mixing. Once the dough is mostly smooth, I'll shape it, cover it, and it's time for a bulk ferment. This usually takes about 45 minutes at room temperature, but what you really want to see is the dough doubling. That's doubled up nicely, but it's still very sticky. A bit of oil on my hands will definitely help. I think using that flour paste makes this unusually sticky, but let's just roll with it. To get some consistency in the size of each bun, we want to weigh the entire dough. I am guessing this batch will give me 4 or 5 decent sized buns, so I'm dividing the total weight by 4. That gives me the weight for each bun, so let's weigh them out to get evenly sized pieces. Once we have our 4 buns, we need to shape them. Just fold them over onto themselves and round them up. Once that's done, I'm adding them to a greased baking tray. I could easily divide this dough into 5, but my tray fits 4 much better, so I'm sticking with 4. Pressing the dough to flatten them a bit helps us get actual burger buns instead of huge dinner rolls. I got a little too overzealous with the flattening. I didn't know this at the time, but I'll show you how they turn out in a bit. Once they're flat, spritz them with water and then we can add our sesame seeds. These not only help with visual appeal, they also add a subtle flavor and a nice bit of texture that improves the overall eating experience. Once they're fully sesamied, I'm going to let them rise for another 15 minutes. That gives us enough time to preheat the oven. Most of you who watch my videos regularly probably know I almost never use my gas oven. My electric oven is my go-to. And honestly, like a lot of people, I mainly use the gas oven for storage. But after Hurricane Melissa, I still don't have power, so the electric oven is out of the picture for now. The gas oven also isn't my favorite because it only has 1 rack and it's not adjustable. The bottom of my baked goods usually burn while the top stays undercooked and colorless. A neat workaround I found is to add a tall baking pan to raise the tray away from the heat source. I'm leaving the pan right side up so the bottom of my baking tray makes minimal contact with any hot surfaces. These usually take around 15 to 18 minutes at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's where I messed up. This time I baked them slightly longer at a lower temperature. The color is fine, but they're a bit overbaked. I'm still going to brush these with melted butter for that finish. I could have used a milk or egg wash for color, but I prefer relying on proper temperature control. Let's just cook. They're still very tasty. I'll definitely eat them, but my test batch came out much better, so I'm going to use these instead. The recipe is the same, except I didn't overpress them and I baked them at the right temperature. These are over a day old and the texture is still impressive. That's the power of a Tangzhong. That took a while, but now let's move on to our chicken. We want beautiful crispy chicken and I will show you exactly how I get that. One chicken breast will give me 2 solid servings. Cut it in 2 so we end up with roughly the same amount of meat in each piece. Next, butterfly each piece. It just occurred to me that I could have butterflied them and then cut it in half. That would probably have been easier. Butterflying is simply making a piece of meat thinner by slicing in half without cutting all the way through. Next I'm going to tenderize these, so I need to cover with plastic wrap so the meat doesn't get everywhere. Tenderizing breaks up muscle fibers. We perceive broken up muscle fibers as the meat being much more tender. Another big plus of tenderizing is that it helps a lot with getting a deep seasoning on our meat. We could also use deboned thighs for this recipe and I'm grabbing 2 of them. I usually prefer thighs over breast, but for this sandwich, breast works much better for some reason. Maybe the milder flavor of the breast synergizes better, but I personally prefer breast a lot more. Alright, now that we have everything together, let's season this. Going lightly with salt, pepper. This is about a tablespoon of Cajun spice, but something like an all-purpose season, complete season, or maybe an Italian season could work. That's about half a tablespoon of paprika. It adds a really lovely flavor. Next up, I'm going to give this a generous sprinkling of onion powder. That's probably close to 2 tablespoons. Onion powder does most of the heavy lifting in this recipe. You could even skip a few of the other ingredients and still have a banger fried chicken. For a bit of spice, I'm adding about a tablespoon of spur trees crushed pepper sauce. Next, mix that up to distribute all the flavors properly. That looks good. I'm going to let this marinate for at least 30 minutes. Doing this ahead of time is always a great idea. Once fully marinated, we can set up our super simple breading station. I love using panko for breading my fried foods whenever breading is called for. It adds that extra clean, crispy texture. That's roughly 2 cups of panko. I also need a 1/3 cup of flour and half a cup of milk. To bread our chicken, first dip it in the flour. Make sure it's nicely coated. Next it goes into the milk. That flour will form a paste with the milk. Next, place it in the breadcrumbs, again making sure to coat it properly. Repeat with the other pieces until all our chicken is done. Once that's done, we can fry them. 350 degrees Fahrenheit is usually the sweet spot. These cook really quickly, maybe around 5 minutes, so once we have a good color, we can remove them. We don't want to overcook them, but tenderizing the meat gives us plenty of margin where the texture is still enjoyable. These smell incredible. After frying, that onion powder really shines. Extremely pleasing. Once done, we're going to let the chicken rest. That gives us time to work on the condiments. First up is an incredible sauce that's not only super simple but also very versatile. I've been making this for a while now, but I only just found out that it's actually a thing. Versions of this exist all over with slight variations and different names. I use this not only as a spread but also a dip or a sauce for random foods. To make it, I'm using 2 tablespoons of mayo, 2 tablespoons of prepared yellow mustard, about a cup of tomato ketchup. I like a bit of spice, so a tablespoon of that crushed red pepper sauce from Tree. Season with salt and pepper, then give it a quick mix to form our incredible sauce. This works as a salad dressing or as a dipping sauce for anything fried or crispy. My version is very mustard heavy, so it has a really good tang that balances out the richness of the mayo and whatever you pair it with. It's simple and it works. Our next condiment is also very simple and works just as well. This is a buttery onion and tomato saute. For our onion and tomato saute, we first need to cut the onions. That's roughly 1 medium onion which goes into my pan. I'm also going to dice 1 tomato. That's for the tomato part of our saute and that goes in the pan as well. This is a buttery saute, so let's add 2 knobs of butter. Season with salt and pepper and cook this on low heat. Stirring frequently prevents burning. Cook it slowly until the ingredients break down and start to get caramelized and jammy. That deep savory buttery aroma is so good. That's almost done, so now let's finally wrap up our sandwich. Portion out the chicken we need for each sandwich and add a couple cheese singles. My oven is off but it's still warm, so I'm going to place them inside to melt the cheese. A broiler also works. We just want the cheese to start oozing, so high temperature isn't necessary, just enough warm to get it soft and melty. Next up, the buns. I'm going to slice it down the middle. That's a good looking crumb. Brush each side with softened butter. These go in a nice hot pan on medium heat to toast. Applying a bit of pressure helps them toast evenly. Once I'm satisfied with that color, I'm going to give it a few seconds on the other side to warm the bun right through. To assemble, start with a generous spread of sauce on the toasted side of the buns. Next, a bit of shredded lettuce goes on. Sliced tomatoes, a light sprinkle of salt really brings out the flavor of the tomato. Our cheese has melted just in time. That goes on. Finally, we have our buttery onion and tomato saute. Close that up and there is our banger chicken sandwich. That looks so good. Everything is still very juicy. Let's give it a taste. That is an awesome bite. All the flavors and textures work so well together. Cheesy, crispy, savory, juicy chicken, refreshing lettuce and tomato with the condiments tying everything together. This is worth all the work, but I think we can level this up. KFC has a solid chicken sandwich with Doritos that sell off, full 10 out of 10. So let's try out some nacho cheese Doritos. Just pile on a whole bunch. Cover that up and let's give it a taste. Yup, that is it. More texture, more flavor. This is impressive. The Doritos add so much more to an already banger sandwich. If you're wondering how this stacks up to the Doritos sandwich from KFC, it's probably about the same, but this is a lot of work, especially if you make the buns yourself. Grabbing a sandwich from the kernel is much easier, but there are lots of benefits to making this yourself. Let's say I wanted to impress at lunch or a barbecue, I would definitely make this. Each component is not only simple and easy, but also very delicious. I'm Nick and wow, this was good. Shout out to our patrons, I really appreciate the extra support you guys give, so big shout out to you. Thanks for watching, big bless up, and I'll catch you in the next one.